I want to go right into this question here with you, Pastor Shrum. We opened it up the last time, but I'll let you expand upon the question here in just a moment. In Romans 13 of the Bible, it talks about those who serve in authority, particularly civil authority, are ministers of God for good, or at least they should be, because that talks about the ideal. They're not all ministers of God for good, certainly, but they are in that capacity. And that means that those in any level of civil authority are God's servants. They are literally, the word there, minister of God, is diakonos. It's the word we get deacon from. They're a deacon of God. They're a servant of God. And they serve the people, they serve God. But as Romans 13:6 says, ministers of God are also there to lead people in worship of the God of heaven, that there's an authority above everybody, including those in civil government, and that's how one does it. But the Bible also refers to those in the pulpit as ministers of God. Well, they're also deacons or servants of God. And we also know more broadly, ladies and gentlemen, that those who are, for instance, fathers in the home are ministers of God. They're also servants. Different positions, different functions, but a lot of the same responsibilities. But being both a minister of God in the pulpit is not a minister of God in government, is not something that most people do, and our special guest talked to us about that briefly. Clint, can you share with our listeners, if you could briefly, about your journey as a pastor and sheriff? I know in my life, I became a minister of God in government first, and then God called me to preach, and so it came in that way. But I know congressmen and others who were pastors in the pulpit who then went into office. I'm curious, what was your journey, and how did God sequentially work in your life? Did you start as a pastor, then go to sheriff, or you go to sheriff and then go to pastor?
Yeah, so I was saved in '92. I answered my call to preach in 1999. I was in law enforcement at that time, but I was just serving as a police officer. And then the Lord just started dealing with my heart about issues in the community. I could see things going on. And I just remember when I made that decision, and it settled well with me that I wanted to run for the office of sheriff. And I ran in 14, and I won a decisive victory. Sometimes I can see the providential hand of God just kind of leading my life into those places where he can get the best use out of me. I'm a servant. That's what I've been trained to do. That's what I was raised to do. That's what I've been called to do. And serving in the church is first and foremost. Then serving in government as the sheriff and being able to exercise those constitutional powers that are given to us using the guidance of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ has been a great joy to be able to serve like that in that capacity.
You know, Clint, I'm very interested in what you have to say because one of my secret desires has always been to be a sheriff. And I've been the pastor for almost 47 years, and I'm 68 years of age. I'm not sure that that's going to come into fruition, but I really am interested. And the thing of it is, you are a servant of God, as you said, but you are a servant of God in two tremendous jurisdictions of God, in both civil government as well as in the church. And I'm just wondering if you can share with our people how your role as sheriff has positively or negatively impacted your role as pastor and vice versa. That is, how your role as a pastor has impacted your position as the sheriff of your area. Can you share with our listeners those questions, please?
I think real quickly, as my role as sheriff and how it's impacted my position as a pastor, I think it's done two things. First of all, it lets me have a deeper compassion for people who are in trouble with things that they're dealing with in their life, whether it be drug addiction, whether it be poverty, whatever. And it's caused me to have a deeper compassion to help those. As far as pastor impacting the role of sheriff, it impacts me every single day. There's not a day that I do not ask the Lord to help me before I take my seat in my office or whatever I'm doing, watch over my staff, give me the resources. And I ask the Lord specifically for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of how to execute that office. And so I think it's caused me to have a greater depth to my prayer life, and certainly some greater depth to my Bible reading, Bible studying, so I know how to execute the office so that he gets the glory at the end of the day.
Well, that is a wonderful thing. When you talk about having compassion, Clint, when you go out and you're dealing with people, because they've encountered the law as a sheriff. And when I asked you earlier on the other side, I think maybe it was Gary asked you, and you were talking about actually working with those that you were helping to remediate those who had come in conflict with the law. I'd like you to expand upon that a little bit because I didn't know what you were going to say. But when you said as a pastor, you were able to take the sense of meeting the needs of the individual that have come in contact with the law. I know you are not there to preach at them at that point, but ultimately we as believers know that God's model is when we come encounter with the law, we ultimately realize we can't keep it, and that should take us to God, who then can help, then is the means to redeem and to heal our lives. Expand upon that a little bit and how you're able to take people who've encountered the law, sense a need in their lives, and bring them solution, not only from the perspective of the law, but something that actually affects a real change in their heart. How do you blend those two together?
Yeah, so, we're called to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And Jesus had compassion on people. And I believe this, that people in jail, most people in jail right now deserve a second chance. I'm a recipient of a second chance. We're all recipients of those. And so what I try to realize is I look at them and I think, you know what, there's still something left. There's some good in there. Let's find that good. Let's dig it out and let's see if we can get them on the right path. And I'm able to do that with people that I surround myself with. We're a small county, 13,400 people, but we've got a tremendous reentry program that not only does education, but partners with volunteer ministries to allow them to come into the jail and bring the gospel of Jesus Christ to them. And I've got the ability to allow that, and so we allow that to happen in hopes to let those people know that, hey, just because you're incarcerated right now does not mean it's the end. It probably just means you're in a good place to make a change. And that's what we try to do with people. We want them at the end of their stay at the Grundy County Jail to be a changed individual for the good. And so that's what we strive to do with every single contact that we make in that jail, is to make that person a better person.
And Clint, again, I'm so thankful that God has put you in the position that you are. And we only have a couple of minutes left in this particular segment, but could you share with our people some of the negative things that you have had to face as a pastor and as a sheriff in fulfilling those two roles, and how God has taken those negative things and turned them into positive experiences?
Yeah, so the most negative thing that I experienced as sheriff, running sheriff, was I was told I could not do both. I was told by people in our community, there's no way that you can be a pastor and be a sheriff. The sheriff part will overwhelm your ability to be a pastor. And it is overwhelming sometimes. But what I've been able to do is show people is that you can serve in both of those capacities, not be overwhelmed by the world. And I think sometimes I've been exposed to some of the negative side of church people, if you would. And that's tough to deal with sometimes, because sometimes you see somebody in a life that you find that they're not really in, and it bears down on you, it weighs on you. And so that's been some of the negative impact that it's had. But what I've been able to do, or what I feel like I'm able to do, is show those people that, hey, you know what, we all make mistakes, and let's just get ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and walk in unity again. So I try to make that negative experiences that I've had on that front, and just try to turn them into good. Sometimes I feel like a little bit like Joseph. Joseph was sold into slavery and then wound up in prison, and then finally wound up as the second in command of Egypt. And he done that, so he was put there by the Lord so he could save his family during time of famine. And so sometimes I feel like I've been picked and put in that position just so I can try to help save some folks.
Rest a church member.
Well, we could talk about that all day. It's something else. It's something else sometimes. I have found out sometimes real quickly, guys, that sometimes dealing with church members and inmates have a lot of similarities, to be honest with you, and so I kind of get a laugh out of that.
Well, Clint, that's a great way to close the program. Thank you for sharing that with us. Just give us an insight into how a person can actually balance two different jurisdictions, because we didn't even go here, I mentioned it, but at the same time, you're a father and you're a husband, and you are balancing that into the mix of these other two as pastor and sheriff. So, anyways, thank you for the work that you have done, and we're glad that we can praise you and recognize you and the governor for what he did to recognize you. God bless you, brother. Talk to you later.